You're listening to Ask the Expert on Sprott Money News.
Well, greetings once again from Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com. This is your Ask the Expert segment for July 2017. I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and joining us again for an Ask the Expert appearance is renowned silver expert David Morgan. David's a guy who has spent almost his entire adult life focusing his efforts on the international silver market. He is an expert and recognized as such. He's the publisher of the Morgan Report, which can be found at themorganreport.com. And it is a pleasure to visit with him once again. David, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us here today.
Well, Craig, thanks for asking me.
And just as a reminder before we get started, these Ask the Expert segments are brought to you by the Sprott Money International Storage Program. We have over 1 million ounces in storage, and we are proud of our perfect audit record. Visit sprottmoney.com/storage to learn more. David, you may recall from when you were on previously, these questions have been submitted by Sprott Money customers. And so we've been collecting them over the past few weeks. I have 8 of them for you today. So if you're ready, can I hit you with the first one?
Yes, go for the lightning round. Go ahead.
All right, here we go. This first one has to deal with, I guess in the way metals are priced these days. The question specifically is physical possession of precious metal the only way to end the paper price suppression, or can the banks keep it going indefinitely?
The easiest way to reconcile is the physical market. In other words, the price is supported through the paper markets, or the paper promises, as I refer to them. And there's a mismatch between the physical market and the paper market, and everyone knows that's looked at this market with any kind of depth whatsoever. So that's really the way to take it down. In fact, I won't take credit for this, but years ago when I had my meeting with Max Kaiser there in France, and we did an interview, and after the interview we talked, quite a bit, and Max came up with this idea. It wasn't my idea. I just talked about the mismatch between the physical market and the paper market, and he started talking about, buy silver, take down J.P. Morgan. So there would be a time where that would definitely tip the scale. The other thing that could happen, of course, is there could be some type of realignment with what the CFTC does with all trading vehicles, especially, let's say, silver as an example, but it could be wheat, it could be whatever, that the hedgers are only allowed to hedge so much. In other words, they're only allowed to hedge maybe a year's worth of material or whatever, and restrict what the unlimited ability for these commodities are able to do. Now, that's really on the books right now, but the CFTC kind of looks the other way. So would another regulation do any good or not? Probably not. But there are things going on, and they're not behind the scenes. Ted Butler's done the best job, really, of following this on a daily basis as far as what's going on with the regulators. And there is, some inquiry going on into this trading aspect of the silver market. It's not over yet, but to depend on someone else to correct the situation, I think is second place to just the stackers overtaking the paper promises.
Yeah, and globally as well. The physical demand removed out of the hands of the banks would seem to be the answer, right?
That's correct.
All right, second question. And this gets into your expertise in following the global silver markets. How accurate are the mining supply, overall supply, and overall demand statistics? And are they ever verified by, I guess we'll call it, outside sources?
Great question. Yes, the mine supply is pretty easy to determine. That's determined by the annual statements of all the major mining companies. And first of all, there are 2 studies. There's a CPM group study, which I don't know what that sells for. I think it's $225. And then there's the World Silver Survey from the Silver Institute. We look at them both and go through them both with a fine-tooth comb. And we just did that, I think, 2 months ago in the Morgan Report. So we compare them all. So we do verify them as best as humanly possible. So the mining records are pretty accurate, and there's a little discrepancy between the 2 studies there. So the mining amount of silver, that's pretty, I won't say easy to determine, but it's not that difficult. As far as recycling, that varies between the 2 studies. We favor one over the other and explain why in our report. And then the other part is, what comes to above ground, so to speak, from what I call burrow mining, which is basically people that basically are out there digging stuff up on their own, or a major mine that's spread out all over some land mass that really hasn't tightened up their security. This happens. This is the reality of the world. And Craig, I know you know it. Some people might be hearing this for the first time. It's not like a massive amount, but you could factor in an additional 5% or something if you wish to. But all that accounted for, believe it or not, between the two studies and looking at them objectively as possible, you got some pretty darn good numbers as far as what's going on. Remember that supply and demand don't meet on mining supply only. But when you factor in silver recycling, it's actually greater than total demand. But demand and supply actually meet. So I don't want to contradict myself. And others are stating a fact that the World Silver Survey, the Silver Institute, said there's been a deficit year over year. Well, that deficit is really going into above ground supply. I think the easiest way to look at it is to look at it the way CPM does. Is the above ground stockpile of silver increasing or decreasing? The answer is it decreased from 1990 to 2006. It decreased from 2 billion ounces to 500 million. 1.5 billion ounces were eaten on the above ground stockpile. Craig, from that time till now, it's rebuilt. It's gone from that 500 million ounces up to about 2.2 billion ounces. So the supply above ground, which is the deficit that the World Silver Survey talks about, the deficit meaning that people are accumulating, stacking silver. And I'm not against that. I'm for it. I'm a big one that does that. But the point is that the idea that there is this structural deficit that's eating away the supply is just not true.
Or at least maybe it was up until 10 years ago and has changed since.
Absolutely. And that's primarily due to increased production of silver. And most of that increase in silver supply was due to the commodities rush from China that demanded a great deal of infrastructure build out, which meant base metal mining. And as we both know, Craig, about 70% of the silver supply is a result of copper, lead, zinc mining, and even gold contributes to the silver supply.
Yeah, the third question, I guess, dovetails into that, David, actually. I think you've always been a big fan of 90% silver, and I know there are a lot of folks listening to us that like to stack it. I think the stat is for about a 50-year period, the U.S. government minted something almost 2 million, no, that's not quite right, is it? It'd be 2 billion ounces of silver into silver coins, these 90% silver coins. A lot of that has been melted over time, recycled. The question basically is, maybe you would have the answer. The guys, if anybody would know, it'd be you. How much pre-64 silver is still out there, this 90% silver coins? How much is still out there?
Well, thanks for the question. And the tip of the hat that I would know, and I don't, but it's probably about 10%. I mean, most of it definitely has been melted down and moved into bars or silver eagles or some other silver form necklaces or whatever. Great deal does not exist anymore. That's why you see such a huge premium on coin bags that are dollar bags. So if you're going to buy, quarters, halves, or dimes, it basically sells for melt value most of the time. But if you want to buy silver dollars, there's a huge premium on it. And the reason being is that there's so few left. And I'm talking about, circulated dollars. I'm not talking about any rare coin whatsoever. I'm just talking about a plain old silver dollar that's been in circulation for a very long time. So how much? Don't know. I'd say about 10%. So out of that 2 billion, you do the math, 10% of that's probably about all. Now, the reason I come up with that number is I've talked to many of the dealers like Miles Franklin, Sprott, and others, Blanchard and Company, Mike Maloney, on and on. No one knows. But again, just based on what their sales are, on how much they sell in the silver supply and how much is bars, how much is government coins, how much is silver rounds, and how much are bags, you got a pretty good feel for what is left.
Fair enough. All right. Next question. I guess, I don't know, in a sense, this is a supply-demand issue as well. We'll see. The question deals with the gold at Fort Knox here in the U.S. Do you feel there really are still 4,600 metric tons of gold held in Fort Knox? And why have there not been any audits of this gold in over 30 years?
I feel there is not. I think the best research done on it so far that I've been able to determine is from Bill Still, Billstill. He's done a few videos on this topic, and I've actually got some of the information emailed to me from Bill. As far as why there's no audit, I think that's self-apparent. The why question is always difficult. There's intent behind it, and the intent is probably not to reveal the truth, which is that, how much physical gold really exists at Fort Knox. I don't think it can be proven, but an audit would. So I don't think they want to prove one way or the other if it exists or not.
That's probably about the simplest explanation there is, my friend. Let's move on to number 5. This question has to do, I guess in a sense it's anecdotal or happenstance, just the appearance maybe to one person, but I want to see if you agree with the notion that the questioner put forth. And he just said that it seems as if the mining shares often turn up or down a few days before the metals move up or down. Do you see it that way? And if so, why?
Well, I have. I mean, as you know, Craig, I've been in this market for a very long time, and it's not just silver, although that's what I, am most fascinated with. But I look throughout the resource sector at everything except energy. So, we've looked at lithium and moly and copper and the rare earths before hardly anyone else, and it wasn't me. It was a friend of mine that really got into that space, and we reported some of his work in the Morgan Report. But back on track, for some reason, the shares usually lead up or down. And answering why is I don't really know. There's two different mindsets between stock traders or equity traders and commodity traders. They're not always the same people. In fact, very often they are not the same people. So perhaps, there's some factor that I don't really know about. I have noticed, of course, it's a leading indicator. So if you see the shares bottom out and then start up, even though the gold price, for example, is going sideways or down, and I usually make it like 3 days or so to make sure it's just not a one-day deal. The other thing that's interesting in this washout that we've had recently, the shares have actually held up relatively well, which is at this time an indicator that maybe we've seen the worst of this washout. So why, I really can't answer. If I could, I would. But as far as is he correct, yes, from my careful observations for years, that's a correct statement.
Does certainly seem that way. You are correct. All right, we've got 3 questions to go. The next one deals with the sudden and surging popularity of all these cryptocurrency, from Bitcoin and Ethereum to all the rest. But this question specifically is to the point of whether there will eventually be a gold or silver-backed cryptocurrency, whether something like that might supplant Bitcoin as a preferred alternative. And do you personally recommend any of these cryptocurrencies?
Well, first of all, I'll take the last part first. Do I recommend or not? I'm free market. I mean, if you look at my article, you can Google it, My 2 Bits About Bitcoin, David Morgan, you'll find my article. And I said, if I am who I say I am, I'm free market. And the market knows more than I do. And if the market determines that Bitcoin's the way to go, who am I to say I don't like it or I do like it? It doesn't matter. The market matters. So I'm still neutral to positive on them. I think the blockchain has a great deal of place in our future for lots of different things. Bitcoin obviously has been the foundational quote-unquote coin in the cryptocurrencies. I don't think it's going away. As far as the gold and silver back, there are a few already. And the next couple of statements are biased on my part. Number one, I've been asked to help contribute to, let's say, a consulting relationship with somebody in Indonesia, and the Indonesian government is really pushing for a digital gold-backed currency. And I've been working on that with some others, and that may take place. Basically, what many of your listeners may or may not know, Craig, is that I forget the exact numbers, so let me just state that the idea is what's important, not my math, because I'm not sure I'm doing this from my memory, but I think there's 600 million or something in the greater Indonesian area, and 50% of them are under 30 years of age. Almost all of them have a smartphone, and almost all of them own gold, believe it or not. The gold that they own is in jewelry form for the most part. And every pawn shop in Indonesia, my understanding, this is what I've been told by somebody that's in the know, uses it as basically a cash now situation where you go into the pawn shop that's state-owned, state-run. You put your necklace on the table, they weigh it out, they verify it, and they make you a hard cash loan, and then you do whatever you need to do with that money, and then you come back and you buy it back. And of course, the pawnbroker gets a fee. And so what they want to do is keep everything as it stands, as I described, but yet put that value onto a cryptocurrency on your phone. And if this were to happen, it would really electrify the gold space in that market. And remember, the Asian markets are huge, as we both know. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two, I am involved with a silver-backed cryptocurrency that's in work right now. And I will be, promoting it. I don't mind using the word promoting, but at least making people aware of it. Will it supplant Bitcoin? That's a harder question to answer, and the answer is I doubt it. I'm favorable to competing currencies. If you want an unbacked limited currency like Bitcoin, and that's what you choose to go with, that's fine. Really, when you get to a silver or gold-backed crypto, there could be, and I already asked this question to the programmer, there will be some arbitrage opportunity because the coin, the token, would be tied to the price of silver or gold. And that means it couldn't stray too far away from that price. Although in anticipation in a hot silver market, for example, you might get like a 15% premium or 10%. And that would offer an arbitrage opportunity for anybody that was in that crypto. For example, what you could do is you could sell your coin at that 15% premium and go to the dealer that's holding the physical silver for you and say, I want to buy more. Sell and capture that 15%, less the spread that the dealer gets, which depends on how much you buy and everything else. But in other words, there's opportunity. But the markets usually self-correct when those opportunities take place, either a premium or a discount. Markets are fairly efficient, not always. If markets were perfectly efficient, we never trade because there'd be no opportunity. So I probably killed that one to death. If you want to do a follow-up question, you can. So there are gold-backed cryptos right now. There are some in work I know of, and there's one that I will be involved with at some point in time, or at least that's how it looks right now. I mean, it is subject to failure. We've got to raise money and do the white paper and put up a landing page and all that's entailed with it, and that's the easy stuff. But the hard work is getting it off the right blockchain and getting all the legalities, getting those T's crossed and those I's dotted. That's the hard part.
Yeah, and if anything, the cryptocurrencies seem to be here to stay. And if anything can take metal out of the hands of the bankers and move it out into private world, private hands, we're all the better for it. So I think we all pull for that. Seeing the things go that direction, David. Okay, 2 questions to go. Do you have an opinion? ICE taking over the LBMA silver fix, and what do you think of these new LME gold contracts that have put in place really on the LME for the first time in decades?
Craig, I'm not afraid to say I haven't formed an opinion yet. I think, in today's world, everybody's got an opinion about everything, and I really haven't studied it long enough or hard enough to really form an opinion. I will contradict myself slightly. I haven't seen a big change with ICE involved, but I really want to reserve comment on that one, but thanks for asking.
Okay, fair enough. Then we will wrap up with this one. This is what everybody always seems to want to ask as we all monitor the markets and try to assess where they may be headed in the future. The last question sent in, David, was just simply, where do you think prices are headed, at least for the end of this year and then maybe into 2018? Well,
Craig, this is a shameless plug, but it's a better explanation. Go to themorganreport.com. Just give me an email address. I just need like a name, first name, or what your handle is. I don't care. I just need that box filled. And then a valid email address. It's a double opt-in, which means you'll get an immediate reply from our autoresponder that says, verify you're not a robot and you really want this report. And I did the silver price outlook for 2017, and I just updated it slightly. So that's the best look, I think, for what's going to go on for the rest of this year. As far as 2018, I'll say it in a rather vague way. I do think 2018 will be a far superior year for precious metals investors than 2017 has been and will be, as far as I'm concerned. But you want to be positioned right. I mean, the main factor I see is once people understand the fiat system, and how the bankers really run the whole show. There seems to be a lot of people that I would say over-invest in the precious metals. It's like, well, where else should I go? If this is going to all blow up at some point in time, I want to be, 100% gold or whatever. And that to me is the wrong attitude. I mean, it's the right attitude as far as will something happen. But, I've been looking at this thing since I was like a, 11-year-old when the coin changed. About 17 years old onward, I started to study money and the monetary system and how fractional reserve banking exists, and I knew that the Federal Reserve was as federal as Federal Express, and in those days they'd throw rocks at you for saying something like that. Now it's common knowledge among the precious metals group. So I think that's the best I can do is give you that update. I think and I'll probably update it before the end of the year. I mean, if something changes drastically, of course, my members will know. And, as you said at the beginning of the show, I go over the commitment of traders in real time. Basically, I look at, pop it up and go through it, my voice looking at it, and I scribble all over it with the pen and all that stuff. And I don't do it weekly because I don't want people to be too tied to the COT. It's a valuable tool, but it isn't the end all be all. And the last update I did, I showed that we're at a very low and very favorable COT position, but I went back in time and I circled an area as far as how many weeks of trading it could stay at this level. So just because we're at a good level to buy doesn't mean you've got to buy immediately. This could go on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then when I circled, I'm going by memory, Craig, but it went for like 2 months. So just because we're there doesn't mean we're there. In other words, don't get so anxious. I still think it's going to be summer doldrums. And I probably over-answered the question, but thanks for asking.
Well, that's a good way to end, though, my friend. I think, once again, the information you provided is extremely valuable, and your willingness to answer all these questions from Sprott Money customers, I know, is greatly appreciated. I want to thank you for your time again, David. Again, we've been speaking with David Morgan, publisher of the Morgan Report, found at themorganreport.com. David, all the best. I hope we can speak again soon.
Well, Craig, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
And from all of us here at Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next month.